Well, with that, I am. I'll go ahead and formally get started. So, again, thank you so much to everyone that has taken the time to be with us tonight. Just a couple quick logistical items before I forget. One is we are recording this, so we'll make sure that we get a copy of this out to everyone. So if you can't stay for the entire webinar, or there's something you want to go back to or look at, we'll make sure that this is available, certainly to everyone that attended and registered, but also we're going to put it out in the parent newsletter. So we'll make sure everybody has a chance. Also, as we go through tonight, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to use the chat to enter in a question. We have time at the end for Q&A, so we might reserve, if you put in a question, we might reserve it towards the end, or if we're able to see it as we're going along, we'll pause, but otherwise we will get to all the questions at the end. So to give you a little preview of what we want to talk about tonight, so I think most of you have had the opportunity to meet me, but just in case, my name is Josh Clark. I'm the head of school, and I'm joined tonight and going to be sharing this presentation with Claire Sullivan, who's the head of our elementary middle school, our EMS, and also Mr. Dean Seidel, who is our director of finance and operations. And we really just want to walk you through the exciting opportunity that we have on our EMS campus in this building expansion project that we introduced right before the holiday break. And as you probably saw or you've heard about, we're phrasing this, or we're thinking about this under this concept of meeting the moment. And the idea is that while we're here tonight to talk about buildings, which we will in just a second, these buildings are really in service to a much bigger, and I would argue more important initiative and goal and objective, which is to create the kind of learning opportunities, the kinds of experiences for your child that's going to prepare them for what comes next, right? Landmark has had 50 years, over 50 years now, of incredible success. And we're really interested in spending the time and reflection and putting the effort to design what the next 50 years should look like and what that should mean for our students and our children. And so again, while we're here tonight to talk primarily about buildings, I want to take a few moments to talk about what those are in service to. So I want to begin by introducing something you've probably seen already, which is this idea of a portrait of a graduate. So the idea of this is really, what are we trying to accomplish? And I know it can be a little confusing when we talk about a portrait of a graduate at the elementary middle school, right? Because I at the EMS, I have an 8th grader and a 5th grader. So we're a while away from graduating. In fact, you might be hearing my 5th and 8th graders scream at each other right now in the background. And if so, I do apologize for that. But on that, right, when I talk about a portrait of a graduate, what I'm referring to is the efforts that we are making to build our students towards characteristics and goals, whether they're with us for 2 years or 10 years, right? So this isn't just thinking about what it looks like for a 12th grader at Landmark. This is about our shared work and our shared commitment together to try to achieve. So we have kind of 4 quadrants when we think about this portrait of a graduate, right? And the first one, if we want to go to that, right, we want to build self-awareness and self-advocacy in our students, right? One of the things that makes Landmark so unique and so exceptional is that not only do we instill in students an understanding of what they need to be successful, an understanding of their own learning, but also we want to instill with them the ability, the confidence, and also the if you will, the urgency to be able to stand up and say, well, this is what I need. Not only do I know what I need, I can advocate for it, I can ask for it, I can articulate it. That's a really important piece. And we also know that just through research, especially research in the last 20 years, metacognition, the ability to think about thinking, to understand how you navigate and how you best learn, is a huge predictor to academic success. So this isn't just about making our students feel good about themselves. These are real, tangible pieces that are important, that the brain research tells us are essential to building strong learners and ultimately kids that can go out in the world and be productive and helpful and all these things, right? So this idea of self-awareness and self-advocacy is really important to us. I'm going to our next quadrant, right? We're also really interested in building literacy and communication within our students. And we mean this in the very traditional sense, in that we want them to be good readers and writers, right? So for many of us as parents, that is what brought us to Landmark in the first place, is we wanted our students, our kids, to be strong readers, strong writers, strong spellers, for all those obvious reasons. And that's core to what we do. But we also think about this a little bit more broadly, right? We want our students to be technologically literate, right? They're going to enter a world that's becoming increasingly tech infused. What does that look like? What does that mean in order to prepare them for that? We also want them to be literate in a complex global world, right? As we all can appreciate what it means to navigate circumstances and expectations, and even just the diversity of schools and workforces appropriately look different now than they did when we were kids. How do we ensure we are giving our kids experiences and opportunities that helps them build that literacy? And when it comes to communication, of course, we want them to be strong writers. That's primary. But we also want them to have the ability, to have the opportunity, and the cognizance to be able to make choices about communication, right? Who is my audience? When is an essay the most appropriate way to advocate and to explain my ideas? Versus when do I need to use more of a PowerPoint, or what's another kind of display, or how might I utilize technology in order to communicate what it is I'm thinking and I'm learning? So again, this is very traditional and at times obvious in some ways, but we also again want to expand upon that when we think about preparing our kids for what comes next. Literacy and communication is multifaceted. And then our third one is this idea of problem solving and perseverance, right? I always talk about the double-edged sword of having a student with dyslexia or language-based learning difficulty is they know how hard this is for them, right? They are intellectual, they're smart, they're capable, and they know when things aren't working. And while we kind of mourn for our students when they have to work harder than their peers so early on, we also, though, know that there is something to being able or having the necessity of working harder than anybody else. There is something about tackling a problem and learning the fortitude to persevere. Because I'm a big believer that once we get out of traditional school, grades aren't the predictor of our success. It's our ability to work hard, to commit ourselves to tough and difficult problems. And our kids already bring something to that, and we want to continue that. And then we also, of course, we also know that so many of our kids are really out of the box, creative thinkers, and we want them to be able to apply those things in novel ways to complex problems. Our world is full of them, and it's only going to grow. So we want to make sure that we're instilling that in them. And then lastly, kind of our last piece of this puzzle is the idea of empathy and perspective. We want our kids, again, whether they're with us for 2 years or 10 years, whether they're in third grade or they're in 11th grade, we want to be having conversations, creating experiences, and working towards higher degrees of empathy and perspective. Perspective in a complex world, perspective in understanding this is how I understand and this is my lived experience, but what might it look like for others? And how do I need to understand that in order to navigate and to work with them and to collaborate to solve complex problems? And that empathy piece is something that our kids already often bring with them. We know that science and research tells us kids with learning differences have higher degrees of empathy. And there's all kinds of reasons behind that. But how can we utilize that? How can we invest in that? How can we recognize that as we again build our kids not to be straight A students, not to be the best landmark students ever. I would argue not even to be the best readers and writers ever, though that's a component of this. But ultimately, how do we build competent, capable, confident students who are ready to go out and tackle the world? And that's what this a portrait of a graduate work is about. And it's reflective of this broader conversation that we're having as a community that you've probably heard me reference before. And that's in the last 18 months, we've spent so much time reflecting, learning, gathering data from all of our different constituency groups to create a revised strategic plan, again, to help us map out what's coming in the future. And another time we could speak more about this, but we really have identified that it's human capital, it's our people, it's our teachers and our faculty and staff that are important. It's the education that we offer to our students and making sure that that is reflective of a changing world, but also of evolving and improving research. We also, which we're going to talk about tonight, this idea of a physical plant, right? Giving our kids not luxurious experiences, but giving our kids a place that is reflective of the pride we should all take and how we think and how we learn, that creates the experiences that we want to offer them. That's really important to us. And obviously, we want to do this in a way that's financially sustainable. So the Board of Trustees and really this entire school community has been in this conversation for about 18 months. And we're starting to get to a place where we can begin to share more concretely what we want to focus on where we're going. And one of those pieces is on our physical plant, right? And that's the one that we're here to talk with and share more about tonight. So, with that, to give you a little bit more detail about what the why of the work that we're doing at EMS, and then Dean Seidel will talk a little bit more about what it's going to look like and how we're going to do it. But for the why and the exciting part, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. As Josh noted, I'm here to talk about why we're so excited about this project and what it's going to offer us. I see it as more than just the physical space, and instead, it's going to be with this category of optimizing the experience for EMS students. And underneath that, there's really 4 aspects under that general category that I'm going to go over very briefly. But I see them as being the schedule, academic spaces, activities that we can offer for our students, and also community events that I'm going to also explore with you. So the first category is this idea of pride in community, and it relates to our schedule. So I posted a picture of our morning meeting. This happens to be a middle school morning meeting from earlier this school year. And I note this because part of our schedule, one of our really important parts of our schedule, is the daily morning meeting. It's something that is an important time for the community to come together. We oftentimes hold 2 separate ones, but every Friday we have elementary and middle school all join us in the meeting room together. And what I noted to the board at one of our fall meetings is on the first day of school this year, I was running the morning meeting with all students. And as the bell rang and students started to file in, I suddenly was filled with this fear of, oh my goodness, they're all not going to fit. We don't have physical spaces or enough chairs in this room for our entire community to convene. And yet here we put so much pride in community, and we haven't even provided them a space for them all to fit. Of course, they were fine with it, especially middle schoolers. They don't mind sharing a seat and sitting on top of each other. But I noted to myself, what this building project's going to do for us is allow us to have those physical spaces that reflect, as Josh said, what we're doing in terms of our values. So we value community, and now we're going to have a space that reflects that, where not only students can all fit, but also our staff. And that's a big part of our schedule. Also, in terms of our schedule has worked for us for decades. But I'm excited about this building project, allowing us to have new conversations and having that flexibility to look if there's changes we want to make to the schedule. What else can we offer our students in any given year? Allowing for that flexible lunch blocks. Right now, we're so stuck with our 2 lunch blocks, first lunch and second lunch, as I'm sure your student talks about. But with this new dining space alone, that'll allow us to fit more students in each of those zones. And what does that going to do with regards to the rest of the day? So that's why I wanted to focus first on the schedule and what this is going to allow us to do. The second area is academic spaces, like the physical spaces that we currently have on campus. And then with this new building, what we're going to gain from it. So many of our spaces were built for a reason at the time, and our program has expanded and changed with regards to having younger students with older students. So a lot of the spaces are set with regards to the height, the counter heights, or the size of the rooms. Our tutorial center, for example, the heart of our program, the one-to-one tutorial, is problematic for some of our students physically. Just the countertops are not conducive to how we would like them to write. We have such an incredible training program at our school where supervisors are in classes, they're in tutorials, and they physically can't fit into the tutorial space to interact with the student, to interact with the tutor. And that's what these new building spaces are going to provide us, that flexibility again, to have the people that we need, the trainers, the experts, having those conversations, engaging with students, engaging with the classroom teacher, the tutor, and having the physical space to do that. And also just with our flexible spaces, depending on if elementary needs a certain classroom in one period, and then the next period, it's a middle school classroom, are we able to flex to that and allow for what both programs may need and what both students at different ages need as well? So that's something that this is going to provide us. The third area is the concept of activities. So we're looking at activities both before, during, and after school. We have the milk break time as well as the lunch recess block. And we live in New England, as we've experienced the last couple of weeks. When we have inclement weather, we are all forced inside for a lot of those periods of time. And we have limited areas where students can go and really do a lot of the things that we know that they'd be interested in doing. Just this year, we had a teacher who started a chess club during milk break, and it's just exploded with so much interest. And being able to have a space that allows all the students who would like to participate in that is really exciting to me. And also just to tap into what other staff members have and can do with our students in any given year. This building is going to allow us to do that during those before school, during school, the milk break and lunch blocks, but also our after school activities and what we can offer for everyone. So that's something we're really excited about. And the fourth area that is going to be really important is this idea of community events. The first slide, we talked about pride in place. And one of the big things that we always come back to is our community and how we celebrate that together. We've had such incredible success last 2 years with our literary days. Last year we had Harry Potter, and this year we had Jumanji Day. And it was just so exciting to see the entire community working together, participating in this event. And we have so many other ideas along those lines. And this new building project will allow the physical space to allow those ideas to blossom. Something that is so indicative of EMS is we have a really creative, student-centered staff. And as I said, this physical space is going to enable us to do what we do best, which is design and create. But it's also this added layer that we haven't had in a really long time, which is that flexibility to look at each school year and each group of students that we have in any given time and say, what do they need? What do they want? What are their interests? And really cater to that for while they're here with us at EMS. So I just see this as a really exciting time. So it's more than just a physical building. It really is about the entire community. So I'm going to pass it on to Dean to talk about that actual physical space. Thanks, Dean.
Great, Claire. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you all here tonight. And it's also, an amazing opportunity that Josh and I have had to sort of pick up where the work got halted back in 2017, where a lot of these ideas originally came from, and move that forward to this current plan and then the implementation that's going to come this spring and into next year. So I want to share with you some of the details of the plan. Then we'll go through some of the logistics of the plan as well. Please remember that all of this information is on the website. So if I go over something too fast, it's certainly there for you to look at again and refer to going forward. So if we look at the plan, on the first floor, and you see the blue area is the area of new building. And then most of the yellow area are areas that are going to be renovated in some way. So the big change from a space standpoint of new space is the new dining hall. And the new dining hall you see is in this upper right-hand corner. It includes a space that'll seat 125 students. It includes a new expanded servery into this expanded space here, a renovation of the kitchen, an upgrade of their storage, both freezer, refrigerator, and dry storage space, and equipment along the prep line. In addition, it includes a space where the students will be passing their lunch trays and dirty dishes, et cetera, right into the kitchen as opposed to in bins, and just providing much better flow for students throughout. The other piece, I think Claire mentioned this as she looked at the ways in which this flexibility of this new space could provide her programmatically, is we've taken this first floor and managed to free up specific purpose spaces and create a number of open spaces. So you see the community lounge space, which is going to be used for students and for middle schoolers to have a place to be when they can't be outside, or to be there before school or after school. A parent gathering lounge space that can not only be used for students, but be used for parents to gather before or after school, and a little bit more space for faculty in what is now the extended dining hall, where they can have a space to separate themselves during the dining, to have meetings and to gather as well. You can see a lot of new tutoring spaces coming into this space. we're trying to, or we are with this improving, we're moving all of the tutoring space from the tutoring center by the gym into the main building. And you'll see that specifically on the second floor when we get there. When we get over to the wing that's to the left-hand side, I'm sorry, we've designed an admission space. It'll be a multi-purpose space, but it'll be designed for admission to use when they need it. The idea being with our admissions team that they need to be on the campus of EMS to provide the appropriate information and tours with the folks that are applying to EMS. So when students and families apply and come to visit EMS, they'll come right to campus as opposed to coming over to the admin building first and not necessarily seeing the campus as they visit. We believe that being on campus is super important to seeing what goes on there and seeing the special context of that education and what it provides, as well as providing an additional conference room space. And that's another flex space for folks to use. So that's the bulk of the changes that are happening on the first floor. On the second floor, of the new part of the building, you'll see that we have 4 new classrooms, multitude of tutoring spaces, as well as office space. Again, this is the beginning of the bringing all the tutoring spaces back into the main building. You'll see a number of different renovations in various parts of the building in yellow where we're adding tutoring spaces. This wing here on the lower left, in the middle of the building where we're converting into tutoring spaces. And then, of course, centralized counseling up here on the top end, so that all of our counseling can be in one place and be in the main part of the building. Another big change is moving the library upstairs. And we find that to be a very positive change in bringing the library not only into a new space, but also into a space that's just adjacent to all of our academic classrooms, so that it's not a separate space that's separate from all the kids and where they learn, and that'll give them better access and better visibility in the library. And then another community space, another common space up here in the center, again, to work through the various flexibility of the creative things that teachers can do with their students here at EMS and providing that for them. And this will all be open up to a new corridor. So this space will be open to that, allowing free range and free run of the space, going through the space, 100%. And then moving the subroom over to the upstairs of the wing, the adjacent wing, which was basically provided by opening up the meeting room for some of the things that now go on into this classroom. I think an obvious question as we look at this building is how is it being funded, and what's its impact on the school as a whole? The funding plan that the board has approved to date is one that really takes advantage of the strength of the school's balance sheet. And we'll be self-financing 70 to 75% of this building as a way to make sure that we can provide the facilities necessary to enhance the program of all of our students. And then we're also in the midst, Michelle and her team as Director of Advancement are in the midst of a fundraising effort for the other 30%. And they're reaching out to people to have those conversations. And if you have an interest in being part of that effort, we'd love to hear from you. There are various naming opportunities and other opportunities to give and to support this effort as we move forward. It's going to be an all hands on deck to make this happen, both from internal and external, but we're excited about the possibilities for sure. Planning and logistics, I think, are an important part of any plan. We're doing a construction project where 2/3 of that project is going to happen while the campus is being occupied, right? And so we want to make sure that we've got that in play. And we've gone through a number of different logistics plans with the campuses and with the contractor that we have hired and the architect. And so here's what the project will begin in March, approximately on March 11th. And the contractor will show up and set up a site, as you see here in this image, where they'll fence off the work site, leaving open, as you see here on the inside left, you'll see that emergency exit will remain for the first part of the project, as well as the first floor exits out of the meeting room. That will still be being used as a dining room and meeting room, and so those exits are important. But the rest of the site will be fenced off, and most of the work will happen right in the midst of this, of the area where the new building is going to go. In addition, we're moving our parking a little bit. So all of the parking that traditionally has gone into this particular wing is going to be moved to the back of the building to the main parking lot, so that this lot will be open both for construction vehicles, but also we are in the midst of working with a small committee to look at carpool. And one of the ways that we want to improve carpool is to potentially split carpool into two parts, where one part continues to move through the normal carpool loop, and the other part moves up onto the left side of this building through the portico, picks up their students, and then swings out that way. We believe we can be far more efficient that way and move carpool in and out much faster. We're working on what those splits will look like and who will go where, but it'll be a consistency for your children that they'll always have the same, carpool location for their normal carpool loop. Lots of signage and safety are an important part of logistics, both for what we are requiring of our contractors and subcontractors, and also to make sure that our kids understand what areas are safe and what areas they need to stay away from. So you see some of the sampling of the signage that'll be on campus for the contractor piece as we begin this contractor in March. We understand that there's going to be some noise involved in a construction project adjacent to the building, and working with Claire and her team will identify times when we need to shut down the project for student activities that might be going on that require a quieter atmosphere. But we are planning that through the contract even now so that there's no surprises in that regard. As we come into the summer months, the contract will occupy most of the school building as you see it here. There'll be a couple of small pieces that won't need renovation that the school will continue to occupy in the student life wing and in the health center. The summer camp will continue to take place, and it'll run specifically or mostly out of the Rudder building while we move through renovations of the existing building during the summer. And all those renovations will take place. You can see now that the fence has expanded to the far left-hand side so that this internal work can be done along this terrace. One of the exciting parts of this new project is rebuilding and building a terrace here that will come out with a permanent stage at the bottom, which will be a great external and outdoor space for students and faculty to use alike once it's completed. You see that a little bit here as we return in September. When we return in September, the external terrace here has been completed. The exterior walls are all up and moving. We're beginning to finish the exterior area of the building and moving to renovate the interior. The fence has been moved inside so that these first floor exits can be used at that time. And we're setting up, and I'll show you momentarily how we're setting up internal exits for the second floor so that everybody has the appropriate egresses. Check-ins, background checks, badges are all being done as well. So everybody on site will have done a background check similar to those that we do for our staff and our teachers. They'll all have a badge so that we know who's supposed to be on campus and who isn't. And they'll all be required to check into the construction trailer to make sure they're fully certified before they come on site. There'll be very little impact in the context of overlap between the construction crew and the students as it relates to EMS, because the time that they're in the main part of the building will be during the summer when it's not occupied. When we come back in September, they'll be working within the confines of the new construction in that new building. This is a shot of the interior of the building. I think the important part of this is to look at the right-hand side and this second floor. You can see the new construction here in this lower left-hand piece that's green on the outside. And then you see the blue. The blue is going to outline the emergency exit from the second floor that's going to run to this stairwell that'll be installed during the summer. And so that will come through a part of the construction site that's not active, but it's still closed off other than as an emergency exit. So these doors will be marked. They'll also be alarmed. So an alarm will go off if somebody goes through them and they shouldn't. And we will drill the kids as we go through the early fall months to make sure they understand that's their emergency egress as they come for the fall, if they need to exit the building from the second floor. So that ends. I'm going to ask Claire and Josh to come back on. I do not see any specific questions yet in the chat or the Q&A, but if you have some, we'd be glad to take them at this point in time. I would remind you once again that all these plans and most of this information is on the website for EMS. In addition, it's on the website for the high school. So if you're interested in seeing what's going on at the high school campus, please be sure you can jump on the website and check that out. Claire and her team will be having meetings with the kids so that they understand the schedule and what's going on at each point in each process within the context of the construction project, and what's going to be delivered, as they get excited about what's coming. post-December. The timeline for the project is that March 11th start date through the end of December, so that we should be able to turn over the new construction of the building in early January. And then the last part of the renovation would be going back into the tutorial center off the gym to renovate that as a new faculty space. All right, we have a question. Can you expand on the carpool potential improvements to improve pickup times? Yes, so if we if you just think of timing and math, if we divide up the carpool in some way, and we're looking at different ways that we can do that by different categories, but even just by having 2 different delivery or 2 different pickup points, you're going to start to limit the number of cars that have to line up and improve the number of cars that can move through the system all at once. Secondly, we're meeting with faculty and those that are currently doing carpool to expand the number of adults that are going to be involved in the process. I think one of the parts of our current carpool is trying to get kids moving. And we all know what it's like to try to get our own kids moving in elementary and middle school. And so we need more adults within that process who understand and know the kids and can make sure that they're moving when they need to move appropriately. So I think both of those things are going to happen in a good way to improve carpool. But there'll be more into that as we get together with the committee. We also are looking at potentially pre-construction testing a part of that split. So we may actually reach out to families and say, hey, we're going to try to split carpool maybe after February break as a prelude to the construction project and get a sense of how that might work to help improve those pickup times. We have another question. What happens with current elementary classrooms for the remainder of this academic year and early next year? Will students be moved to alternate spaces? Claire?
That's a great question. So for the rest of this academic year, all elementary students will be in their same classrooms that they're currently in. And then for next fall, we're looking for a few of the classrooms that will have to be in temporary spaces. But we've already identified several of the spaces that are classroom sized, and that'll just be for the fall semester. And then over the winter break, they'll be able to move into their permanent classroom when that's done with the new construction. And what we're most likely going to do is keep the 2 wings of the new building as elementary, so that there'll be 4 classes together and then another 4 classes together. So they're not all spread out, even as they currently are, with some down one hallway and the other. It'll be nice that they're all kind of more centralized. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sorry,
just
just to clarify temporary, those are temporary spaces that currently exist in the building, not like trailers or anything that we're bringing onto campus. Everything
Yes,
will be
thank you for
housed
clarifying. Yes, they're
within
current
the main academic
classrooms.
building.
Yes, current classrooms or other larger spaces that were once classrooms that we've repurposed for other reasons that elementary will temporarily occupy for the fall semester only before they're able to move into their permanent new spaces, which will be really exciting.
I will also add, and again, if anyone has any questions, please continue. But as we go through this process too, when the buildings are complete, we're also adding additional safety measures throughout all buildings so that we can steer traffic. As you all know right now, there's a main office, but we have a wonderful, warm, and welcome campus, and we don't want to lose that. However, we also just want to be reflective of the world that we live in. So as we go through this process too, we're also going to be likely putting in a fob system of sorts that designates all visitors through one door, and those who are authorized, including students, will have access to doors through more of a fob system. Again, we're taking advantage of the opportunity we have as we do this, not only to make these kind of broad scale improvements, but also some of these more incremental things that we think are important as well. And if I'll talk for 3 more minutes or fewer, just to give anybody a chance to have questions. I will say about carpool, we're excited about carpool. And as you all know, anytime you try something new, it probably is going to get worse for a day or 2 before it gets better. So there'll be lots of communication. We appreciate your patience as we figure out how we can improve this, knowing that day 1 won't be as smooth as day 10. But we will certainly get there as we go along. With that, again, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them up on here. I know we have a few people that joined us late. I think Dean mentioned this as well, but this all is recorded. So if you came in a few minutes late or you were midstream and wondering to be asked about X, Y, or Z, a recording is going to be available and you can go back to it. Dean also mentioned all of this, or much of this, most of this is available on the school website. So you're welcome to go back and look. We're really excited about this. We're so excited what this is going to mean for our community, for our students. We're so appreciative of you taking the time to be on the call with us. As Dean mentioned as well, we are also always looking for people who want to partner with us through philanthropy to make sure that this building reflects all of our hopes and our ambitions and that we're able to do all that we plan. So we would certainly welcome those conversations at any time as well. And this won't be the last you hear from us about this. We'll continue to keep you updated. We're going to have a groundbreaking with the kids as we get a little bit closer to that March date. And then again, we'll certainly keep you updated step by step as we make progress. And then we're already planning and thinking about exciting ways of when it's time to actually open this expansion. What are the ways that we can invite everybody in and be a part of this celebration as we kind of start a new chapter in Landmark School history? So Claire or Dean, if you don't have anything else, I think we're out of questions. And again, thank you all for being with us. Don't hesitate to reach out to any of us individually after this for any reason. And we hope you have a wonderful weekend. Turns out it's going to snow again tomorrow, which is weird. It's weird. It snowed more this month than it did all last winter. I want to point that out. We've had more snow now that I can't leave, now that I'm really into this place. Suddenly we've had more snow in 3 weeks than we had all winter. So
Well planned.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you to all. Again, reach out to us for anything. Dean and Claire, thank you for your time as well. And
Take care, everybody.
bye, everybody.